Today, we have the honour of hosting Jay Motty from Stretford Paddock, but also his work extends beyond football to two very important topics that we're going to touch on today. One about the harm alcohol does to people, and the other is around homelessness. So before we actually get into the football, which I think, when you discuss these sort of topics, it puts it second. These are far more important topics to talk about. Could you just tell us about these two really great projects that you're involved with, Jay?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me on, and good to see you again, Sam. If I start with obviously the alcohol side of things, I've had issues around alcohol and drug addiction pretty much all my adult life. I'm 11 years sober now, clean and sober, and fortunately, I was asked to be an ambassador for Alcohol Change UK, and their attitude towards alcohol isn't that everyone has to stop drinking alcohol forever, or you can't drink. They say, if you want to drink, that's fine. You just have it in moderation. They're on about alcohol awareness. They do campaigns like Dry January, for example, which I'm sure you've all heard of, was something they invented, they started. And they asked me to come on board as an ambassador and talk about, not just exclusively, but a big part of what I talk about is how football and alcohol could go together. Now, you can still enjoy the game without necessarily having to have a drink, or if you want to, drinking in moderation or whatever. In my case, it's obviously not drinking at all, but I still go to the matches that I used to go to when I was getting on it. And it's been a privilege to be involved in them. They do a lot of great work. I've met a lot of good people over the last, I think it's about 2 or 3 years I've been doing it. So it's just something that's obviously a subject and a topic that's close to my heart. And without preaching at people, I'm not going to tell anyone what to do. I can tell you what I do and what I've done, and my attitude towards drinking, and my attitude towards sort of being able to go out and enjoy your life and enjoy yourself and have a fulfilled social life without having to drink. I think that's a big sort of misconception, is that once you stop drinking, that's it, or stop taking drugs, you can't enjoy yourself. And trust me, that's not the case. And I've been through, 11 years of watching Manchester United post Alex Ferguson without having a drink. So there's something in that, to be honest with you. And just on the homelessness side of things, the Booth Centre, which is a charity here in Manchester, they do a lot of great work around homelessness, about providing help and support to those who are either homeless or just out of homelessness, whether that's help with the benefits, help just giving them a meal, or some clothes and stuff like that, help with their benefits claims, or if they're seeking asylum, helping with those sort of legal issues they may have. It's a sort of all-encompassing, almost like a one-shop stop, really, the Booth Centre, where if you're suffering, because I think it is almost like you're suffering with something. If you're homeless and you need help, they can give you that, even to the point of they do stuff like arts and crafts, or watch films or whatever. They do so much great work. And one of the most rewarding aspects of my involvement there, I'm a trustee with the Booth Centre, was we put on a match. We've done it twice now, last 2 years, at FC United's ground, where it was like the Booth Centre versus the rest of the world. So you've got people that are either homeless or were homeless playing a football match at FC United's ground. And a lot of them are very talented. Trust me, they can, don't worry about that. There's some decent football on
this.
This
isn't the Homeless World Cup thing, is it, that sort of?
No, it's slightly different. That it's a similar sort of thing,
yeah,
but it's slightly different to that. And it's just an 11-a-side game that we do at FC United. I just do a bit of commentating, and we film it with a bit of help from some of the chaps here. So yeah, it's just been a sort of a privilege, really, and an honour to be involved in it. And I think when you chat to the people that use the Booth Centre, and I've been in awful situations myself, you think that can happen to anyone. People have this misconception that, people who are out on the street or are homeless, it's their choice, it's their decision. They're not worthy of our sympathy or our support or our help. And I think when you actually talk to the people who have found themselves homeless, you see some of the tragedies they've been through, some of the issues they've got around mental health and things like that. You realise that it can happen to anyone, and it's important that charities like the Booth Centre do the work they do, and I think they do such a fantastic job. Again, it's just an honour to be involved.
And congrats on 11 years sober as well, by the way.
Thank
Jay.
you.
That's unreal stuff. And with the links to the charity as well, we'll post them below if you've got ones where people can donate. And I'm sure our subscribers will oblige as well, because it's such a good cause.
Yeah, and I just wanted, before we get into the football chat and everything, a last question for you, because, alcoholism does affect a lot of people, does affect a lot of men in the football community, women as well. So what is maybe, 2 or 3 tips that you can give to people that just to to manage their alcoholism? Like you said, you don't even have to stop, but just get that under control.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. The first thing I would say to anyone who has an issue around drinking or drug taking, because let's not kid ourselves, let's not be naive and pretend that we live in a bubble. We know that there's a lot of drug taking that goes on, whether that's at football or not. Sometimes that can go hand in hand, and it used to for me. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't used to drink and sniff when I went to the football games. I used to do both. It's to be honest about it. If you're struggling around that, be honest with yourself and be honest with your friends and let them know. Tell them, look, this is getting a bit too much for me. I'm having to take a step back, or I'm having to moderate my drinking, or I'm not having a drink today. That helps when you're not having to hide it, or you don't feel like you can admit that. And if your friends care about you and they are your genuine friends, they'll get it. And a lot of the time, they'll probably be relieved, because most people, when they get to the point where they have to address their alcohol, it's because it's become an issue for them. And sometimes when it's an issue for you, a lot of that is because when you're drunk, your behaviour's not great. You might be a bit of an handful, and a lot of your mates might be like, do you know what, you're doing us a favour now. We don't have to babysit you, or you don't have to, stop you from kicking off, or whatever it is. So you'll actually find the response might be one of sort of support rather than confusion. So I think that is a massive thing, to just sort of be open and honest about it with yourself and with those around you. And I think another bit of advice, and this is only, I can only speak for myself, is if you find yourself in situations where it is difficult, where you are tempted, or you're struggling because you're trying not to drink, and especially early doors when you're cutting down or you're cutting your drink, take yourself out of that situation. Don't white knuckle it and think, I have got to stay in this pub while everyone's getting levered, even though I don't want to drink. There's times when you can go out and you can enjoy yourself when people around you are drinking. I do that all the time. But there's times when you might just go, you know what, I might go home a little bit earlier today. I might just give this a bit of a swerve. That's okay as well. So don't sort of force yourself to be in situations that might just end up being sort of detrimental to you, and you might not enjoy yourself as well, because what's the point in going out if you're not enjoying yourself? So yeah, those are my two sort of key bits of advice. I think the main thing is just chat to someone, let people know. People will be supportive. And I think one of the good things about the sort of modern day is that whilst the internet can be awful in terms of trolling, it can be awful in terms of social media and some of the stuff you see on there, I think there's a lot of good that comes from it. I think there's lots of conversations going on now that weren't going on 10, 15, 20 years ago. Trust me, I think people have more education, have more understanding about mental health issues, about alcoholism, about drug addiction. There is support there. There is a network there that you can tap into. And I think we are having those conversations. And I think the stigma is it's not gone, but I think the stigma around mental health, the stigma around alcoholism, the stigma around drug addiction, it is sort of getting chipped away at. And I don't think it's as bad an issue as it used to be in terms of that stigma. Because I go on the channel with my chest out that, I do not drink because I used to and I messed it up for myself. I don't do it anymore. And the response I get is fantastic. It really is. The support I've had from both the people that I work with on the channel and my friends and the viewers is phenomenal. And I get a lot of messages from people who say, Jay, I'm going through it a little bit myself. And I think it's important to have those conversations. And you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to anyone. But yeah, I think it's a positive thing, the way that stigma isn't as bad as it used to be.
It's another good reason as well to mention it to your mates, because they might be relieved because they don't have to babysit you. But sometimes they'll go, oh my God, I don't feel the pressure now, because I was going to the football thinking I have to have a pint because Jay's having one. Great and, point. Sometimes it takes the pressure off them as well. They might be.
That's such a good point, Sam. Yeah.
It's like secular, isn't it? Each person's like egging the other on, and it's kind of like a bit of toxic masculinity in there as well, of like, oh, well, if he's doing it, I've got to do it. I've got to keep up with the lads. They won't like me. But that's really excellent advice, Jay. And like I said there, I felt it was quite good to have almost a bit of an important discussion before we go into what is, not as important in terms of it, but we do have to talk about Manchester United. And I know you two, I don't know whether you're going to be positive. I don't know how much we're going to be talking about the good that is going on with the Red Devils, but I'm going to bring up a quote here from you, Jay. And I think this is a nice little, I think a sedate response, a really well thought one, because you usually do this. You said, my patience with Amorim has been since this Grimsby game, but can't deny they played really well in the Premier League. It's been the finishing that's cost us again. So do you think that
can I just say that? Sorry, just to qualify that. That's a retweet that I retweeted. Oh, okay. So it's not my words, but I retweeted it because I thought it was a good point. Yeah. I get it. So I'll let you finish your question. Sorry, I just wanted to be clear that those weren't my words, because there's probably someone watching or listening going, hang on a minute, that was mine. He's nicking that. So usually if I retweet something, it's because I agree with the sentiment or I understand the sentiment, and I think there's a valid point there. But I'll let you ask your question because we'll get into the Amorim topic.
Yeah, well, just, quite simply, do you believe that enough positive changes have come about that Ruben Amorim deserves more time now?
I will say this. I'll give you a direct answer because I'll give you the answer first, then I'll get into the thinking about it. I definitely think he should have more time. I definitely don't think there's any benefit of sacking Ruben Amorim now. I think that would be a mistake. However, not to sort of play both sides, but that's my opinion on whether Ruben Amorim should be sacked. No, he should be given more time. However, I do understand why people are losing faith. I'm not completely naive. We had Carl Anker from The Athletic on the channel yesterday, who's a fantastic journalist, explains things really well. And he mentioned something, and he said, when you speak to a lot of United fans, there's two schools of thought with Ruben Amorim. There's the United fans that say this is Ruben Amorim's, he's had 4 games this season, so he needs time. And there's United fans that say he's been here 11 months. This should have been a lot better. We've still got issues. And I also find that when you sort of debating United fans as well, there's 2 other schools of thought. There's one, well, not 2 other schools of thought. The people that defend Ruben Amorim, like myself, because I do defend him, so I'm one of these people, use a lot of hypotheticals. So, and I will say things like, if you give him time, I think it will get better. Once these players gel, I expect us to be moving up the table, scoring loads of goals. I think a new goalkeeper coming in will make a big difference. I think if we eventually get a new midfielder in, things will be, the team will almost be complete. Those that criticise Ruben Amorim don't use hypotheticals, they use evidence. And that's why I sometimes struggle when I'm defending him, because I'll go, okay, you're saying you expect this, you expect that, you hope that, you think that. I'm saying the guy's been beaten sort of almost every week. I'm saying we finished 15th, and a lot of that was on his watch. I'm saying we lost the finals to Spurs. How do you defend that? And that is where it's difficult, because I get all that, but I will say, again, I'll go to hypotheticals. I'll say, look, he inherited a mess. I've seen enough green shoots this season to think there's something moving in the right direction. And I think in the league, the positives are there. Even though we got beat at home to Arsenal, I thought it was a good performance. A draw at Fulham wasn't great, but it's not the end of the world. And we did beat Burnley, and I thought we deserved to beat Burnley. The one thing you can't ignore, though, and I'm never going to defend it or excuse it, was the Grimsby game, because that was terrible. There is no sugarcoating it. There's no defending the manager on that one. You can think Ruben Amorim deserves more time, and he got that one wrong, or also the players let him down. And I think that is the case, because that Grimsby performance and result was absolutely shocking. So I can't defend that one, but I do back Ruben Amorim.
I think in life and in football specifically as well, we think that there's always a yes or no answer. Probably because that's what we're taught in school. You sit an exam, you answer it, and it's right or wrong. With Amorim, I'm in such a mess in my head because there's so much wrong with it. The 11-month thing, he would say, I did not want to come in mid-season. I didn't want to come in mid-season at all. And United basically gave him this ultimatum of it's now or never. And he made the jump, didn't he? And then he's gone, look, this is why I wanted pre-season. This is what I wanted transfer windows. This is why I wanted time to teach the players my system. But the win percentage, I think, genuinely, against a team like Grimsby, especially, if I was in the dugout and I went 4-2-3-1 with a £700 million football team, they would win that game 9 times out of 10, maybe more. So that's where I struggle, that this system, and this is why it almost turns to the fact that it's not Amorim's fault, is United knew what they were doing. And it's the same problem that United have had literally since Fergie left, in that the recruitment has been bad. Maybe you can argue, obviously, this summer was better, but the recruitment over the past 15 years has been bad. They didn't even seem to do background checks on anyone. You know, like Anthony with his domestic abuse case open, all the stuff with Ronaldo, Mason Greenwood, like what's going on with the academy and inherently producing these players that are maybe, I don't know, full of themselves or worse in Greenwood's case. So then you've got basically, in as many terms, a load of dickheads. You pay them more than anyone else is willing to pay them, historically. Obviously, we're trying to change that as well. So you've got a squad full of overpaid dickheads who don't have any incentive, because sometimes we've taken them from a Real Madrid and they've won it all, and we bring them into this team. And usually we sign 3 or 4 players for a certain manager, and then we bring a manager in with a completely different system and sign 3 or 4 more players. So you've got like a Frankenstein's monster of a squad with a load of different system players. They're all overpaid and they've had no background checks on them. And I just think no manager in the world is getting a tune out of that. And I also think that the problem doesn't necessarily lie with the manager, because Ten Hag gets a lot of grief for bringing Anthony in and setting us back years, which I agree with. But he shouldn't be doing or having as much of a say in recruitment as that. That is not a normal thing for a football club or a football manager to have that much impact on transfers. Like final sign off, yes, but every player we signed, had some sort of tie to the Dutch league and whatever else. And United's, I'm sure you'll have read this in The Athletic, our recruitment department, I think, recommended spending 25 million on Anthony, and then go down that rabbit hole, and then we end up spending 90 million on him. So then he's got a load of pressure from the price tag. Like, I just don't understand how any manager could get a tune out of him. But what I do think is crazy is that the one that they've now jumped to is playing such a random system. So, if he did leave, there's probably 2 or 3 managers in the world that you could bring in that actually make sense, with 3 at the back and wing backs. And he sold all our wingers now as well. So even if they got rid of him, let's say it carries on and the results don't come in, and in 2 months' time we get rid of him, the next manager's going to come in and go, right, well, we've got no wingers now, so I need to spend 200 million on wingers next transfer window. And then we're always 3 signings away from being anywhere near. But that's my rant over anyway. I'm not yes or no, because it's not that black and white. But essentially, I think it's a weird choice of manager to back because of the win percentage, the system, and everything. But agreed with you, Jay, that it makes no sense to sack him now. You're not going to bring anyone that's going to do a better job. The green shoots in the Premier League, I don't know if you've seen this, but United have had the most shots in the league. We've had the most touches in the opposition's box. We've had the most accurate long balls per game, highest XG, and 4th for shots on target per game. Historically, when you look at those stats, we're always around the bottom, but somehow managed to scrape through. So those are the green shoots that I'm taking from it. But I spend my life being cautiously optimistic as a United fan. It rarely pays off. That's my rant over. Sorry, I've got a lot to say on the subject.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I do. I think there's, you look at the amount of money we've spent over the years, and the fact that we keep having so many resets. And yes, we've won trophies. We've won, I think, 5 trophies since Fergie retired, but we haven't really been in a title race. The 2 times we finished second was a distant second. We're not in the Champions League more often than we're in it, and we're not even in Europe right now. There's been a failure, and it's not just out of Ruben Amorim or one manager. It's a succession of managers who probably didn't do what they were meant to do, the transfer policy just being terrible. And I think that while some of the academy players that have come through have done well, maybe there's been times when we've had too much expectation, too much pressure on them, overplayed them when they shouldn't have been played, when they should have been dropped or rested. So it's just been this awful combination, and I don't think it helps as well. You can't blame sort of everything in terms of every single performance. You go, well, the Glazers. I don't blame the Glazers for us not beating Grimsby. I don't go, well, that's on Joe Glazer. But I do blame the Glazers for the state of the football club, because you've had these owners who for 20 years now have systematically almost done their best to destroy what made Manchester United such a well-run and fantastic football club. Not having football people in charge of football decisions. Ed Woodward was making some of the transfers that Sam referenced there. He's not got a jar of glue about football. He knows less about football than any of us 3, and yet he became the most important man at Manchester United. Now, I wouldn't trust, no disrespect to anyone, I wouldn't trust us 3 to make the decisions at Manchester United, but we certainly know more about football than Ed Woodward.
Yeah.
Then you've got the fact that when we needed to do things like renovate Carrington, we didn't, yet they were still taking dividends. Just all these decisions that affect the football side of things. Plus, you've got this haphazard approach to transfers and managers that doesn't make any sense. So all that adds up to having some sympathy with what Ruben Amorim inherited. And Sam made a great point about the fact he said, I want to come in at the end of the season, and the owners or Ineos or whoever were like, no, come in now. And he was like, right, okay. And I think he could have stayed at Sporting, won the title, and then come in the summer, and everyone would be like, yeah, we've got a great new manager who's one of the best managers in Europe. But we can't go backwards. We have to go forwards. And I just hope that with this run of games after the international break, we've got City, we've got Chelsea, I think we've got Brentford, then we've got Liverpool, I think. I just hope that we can see, as Sam referenced, the green shoots sort of blossoming, because those games could be unforgiving if things aren't right.
Yeah, one thing for me about Amorim, which is a massive black mark against his name for me. Is this kind of like, and it might come with the inexperience, as a young manager, is this kind of like self-deprecating, like, oh, I'll walk away whenever, I feel like I'll just resign if things go wrong. And that trickles down to the players. Of course it does. Like, if you've not got confidence in your own ability, how are you going to get, 20, 30 lads who are trying to be at the peak of their physical athletic careers? How are they going to rally behind someone that's like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll resign in the next international break, or maybe I won't? Like, even the case in point was him sat in the dugout at Grimsby when them penalties, he's head in his hands, and the Grimsby manager's on the touchline laughing his bollocks off.
Yeah.
Like, that trickles down to the players. Of course it does. You turn around and your gaffer's sat with his head in his hands.
Yeah, I remember when City got knocked out against Real Madrid on the penalties, and Ancelotti was just all chill and just like stood around having a laugh, chatting with, Vinicius and Bellingham or whatever, just looked like, Don Carlo and all that. And Pep wasn't but he was ranting and raving and doing all these Pep stuff. And do you know what I mean? And then they went.
Imagine you see your manager at work doing that. Like, what would you be thinking?
Yeah. I mean, I've said this before because I don't watch penalties, but I'm not the Manchester United manager. No one's looking at me expecting me to give them inspiration for watching when you take a penalty. I think with Amorim, I think United as a club need to almost protect him a bit, or sort of guide him a little bit on certain things that might have been all right at Sporting are going to get scrutinised more here. Certain things you say are going to get analysed to the sort of a ridiculous degree. So whilst you might have been able to sort of sit in a dugout and not watch penalties at Sporting, it's not a big issue. At Manchester United, it will get overanalyzed. At Manchester United, if you come out after the post-match, after the post-match, for the post-match interviews, if you're mega emotional, you're in danger of saying something that's not in the best interests of you or the club, whatever, someone else can say, take him to one side, have a chat with him, like, look, take a minute, because he's done it a couple of times, and I like Ruben Amorim, where I like his honesty, but sometimes it seems to hinder him, where he said things like, we're the worst team ever.
Yeah.
And then a week later, he's got someone like Jamie Jackson from The Guardian or whoever saying, you said you're the worst team ever. How's that going to make your players feel? And he's like, well, statistically, I meant worst United team in Premier League history, which we are, having to roll back slightly. And I think there was a little bit of that the other day when he said, like, the players spoke to me and and I feel like quitting. But I say that all the time. Sometimes I hate my kids. His kids catching strays.
His kids are sat home.
Kids, I was like, Jesus Christ, bro. Like, you didn't need to say that. So I just feel like maybe the club needs to give him a little bit of help, a bit of guidance, and just sort of steer him in the right direction at times, because he is emotional, he is honest, and that 99 times out of 100 will be a good thing, but there's that one time out of 100 it can hurt you a little bit, and I think we've seen that with Ruben Amorim in certain interviews.
Yeah. The one story that I loved from Jude Bellingham's first season at Madrid, it was the night before the Champions League final. Obviously, they were playing Liverpool again, and he said he was in his hotel room, obviously a bag of nerves, wondering, how he's going to play, how the team's going to set up, blah blah blah. He said he'd come downstairs and Modric, Kroos, and whoever else, they were just sat playing cards, and they were just like, all right, mate. And he's like, what? Like, we've got Champions League final tomorrow. It's just another game for them. And I think it was Adam Lallana said the opposite when they played Real Madrid a few years earlier. Said they were all a bag of nerves, like they knew it was the biggest game of their lives the next day. And Gareth Bale said that, it's just another game for Real Madrid. And I think it's that kind of, if you've got everyone around you behaving like that, it's business as usual. You're like this well-oiled machine. It's very different to looking over on the touchline, seeing your manager being a bag of nerves. And then that, of course, that trickles down to you. You're stepping up for a penalty to save your club from embarrassment, basically. If you look over and the manager's just stern as you like, stood, or laughing or whatever, then you're probably going to feel a lot more relaxed. It just brings a whole anxiety to the situation, I think. And, you can imagine what he's like behind closed doors if that's what he's like on TV camera.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring it on maybe to like a quick fun blow by blow of the Manchester United transfer. So I'm going to give it to both of you. So Jay, you start us off, and then Sam, see if you agree or whatever. So maybe go like an ABCD system, F if it's a failure, or you could go 1 out of 10, whatever you decide. So first of all, we're going to go with the cheapest first. Diego Leon. He joined for 4 million, 18-year-old left back. I don't know if he's really going to make that much of an impact, but what do you think on that one, Jay?
I have no idea whether Diego Leon's going to be a success or not. It's far too early to tell. What I do like is the fact that United are looking a little bit further afield at transfers. There's always been this criticism that we don't look at the South American market, for example. We don't look for young players. from that region, and we started doing that. He was 17, I think, when we signed him from Paraguay. It's not. I think he might even be the first Paraguayan player we've signed, unless I'm missing someone. But the point is, United has certainly taken a little bit of a different approach to transfers, which I'm a big fan of. But it's far too early to tell. I couldn't tell you whether this lad's going to be a success or not. And also, the one positive with that is at £4 million, if he doesn't work out, no one's going to look back and go, the signing of Diego Leon was where everything went wrong. It's just it's a tapping in it. It's like it's worth the punt. So yeah, I don't want to give the lad a rating because it'd just be silly. I'm just glad that the club are at least looking at different areas.
Yeah,
Sam?
I would agree with that as well. So you can't really go wrong in the circumstance. If I had to really nitpick, and I'm going to sound like Brexit Britain, Farage or something here, but if what I sometimes don't understand is there's probably an 18-year-old, Harry Amas or someone like that, where is he not going to get a chance because we brought a different trendy lad in for 4 million and he gets pushed out to Sheffield Wednesday? Do you know what I mean? It's like, surely they've not gone and looked in the Paraguayan league and gone, he's definitely better than this other 18-year-old that's in the academy. But that's me nitpicking. You can't really go wrong with the signing, so I like it.
So next up is somebody maybe who might sort out the goalkeeping issues at the club, because we've been talking about Onana so much through his whole time there. Sene Lamens has joined for 21 million, 23-year-old goalkeeper from Royal Antwerp. Jay, do you know much about him? Is he the guy that's going to stop these kind of leaky goals going in?
Well, thankfully, I've been watching Royal Antwerp every week for the last 2 years. It's what I do. I just, as soon as I wake up in the morning, I watch Royal Antwerp, and I think this kid is the one.
I'll be in the first half.
Yeah, I've no idea. We've all seen the clips. I remember watching clips of Gabriel Obertan. He looked like the best player I'd ever seen in the world. We all know how he turned out at Manchester United. He was shocking. So I've no idea, is the honest answer. We needed a goalkeeper. I understand why the club were reluctant to go for Emi Martinez in the end, why they would rather go for someone who's younger, because whilst Emi Martinez has experience, we also know he has his faults as well. We'll have to wait and see. The worry I have with Son Lamons is he's coming into a United team where people are already looking at him going, he's the answer to our problems. Get him in the team against City at the Etihad. I mean,
oh my God.
Talk about a baptism of fire. It's probably the worst ground you could go to make your debut, if indeed he does. So I am a little bit concerned that he's not perhaps going to get the grace period that he needs if Ali Bayandere and Andre Onana continue to keep throwing footballs into the back of the net. We'll have to wait and see. It's not on him. It's more on the club that we're in this horrible situation where a 23-year-old from Royal Antwerp is in danger of being thrown straight into the Manchester United first team, regardless of whether he's ready for that. Because I've seen much more experienced goalkeepers than Son Lamons come into the United team and struggle. We've had the likes of Fabian Barthez, who struggled. Roy Carroll, yeah. Mark Bosnich, who'd been at United and went to Villa and came back and was, not up to the job. We've had loads. I don't need to list them all. So we'll have to wait and see. So the jury's out. I just hope he gets given some time, because being in goal for Manchester United can be a pretty unforgiving place.
Yeah, that's one thing I missed out on my rant actually before, was quite often we'll sign young players for a lot of money, and where at other clubs they might have an arm around them, like Tuish Shamey, I always butcher that pronunciation, at Madrid or someone, they come in and they get bedded in over a season and a half, like the less important minutes, they're around big characters in the dressing room. We will sign Lenny Yoro, chuck him straight into the starting lineup in the Premier League, one of the most physical leagues in the world. And, he's found his feet now and he looks like a quality player, but I feel like it's not fair to do that. And this could be another scenario like that, like you say, Jay, where we don't just sign him and bed them in and, he plays a couple of cup matches and gets his feet under the table and understands the club. It's like, right, we're at the Etihad next week and we've got no one. We've just spent 20 million just to get in the starting lineup. So through no fault of his own, he's probably immediately at a slight disadvantage in terms of the hope that United fans have hung on him. But I'm really glad we avoided Martinez. I actually quite like Martinez antics. I like a bit of a shithouse in the team, but it's kind of a similar mistakes to Onana and stuff, and I just think it's not worth the whole signing another 30-odd-year-old goalkeeper, which is not that much of an upgrade. So I'm happy for getting someone else in other than Martinez, but I'd give it probably like a C in terms of the transfer, because we just don't know.
Okay, well, let's move it on to Mateus Cunha. Obviously, one of the big signings of the summer, 74.2 million euros. Jay, you got to be excited about this one. This one's got to be an A or a B.
Yeah, I mean, look, from everything I've seen so far, either at Wolves or in a United shirt, I've been impressed by. I thought he was fantastic when he was at Wolves. Saw him at Old Trafford a couple of times where he absolutely destroyed us, especially in that game a couple of seasons ago. I think it was the opening game where he just made Lissandro Martinez look average. And we know in terms of numbers, if you're just going off the stats, very impressive numbers. And he's come into the United side and he just looks like he fits in. He's not found the shirt too heavy. You can tell that already. He's got a swagger to him. He's got aura, as the kids love to say. He's got that about him, and he's got that edge. Far too often at United, right, we've been bullied. We've seen teams come to Old Trafford, right, and just bully us, just, kick off and take the mick and just get away with it. And I saw him at the Arsenal game, and he's in the middle of a melee with all the Arsenal players because he said Ben White was wasting time. And he's just going for it on his own. You think he's got a bit about him. He can score goals. He can take players on. And he's got all the bag of tricks. And he's also got a bit of an edge. He's not going to be bullied at all. So I love this signing for Manchester United. I really do. I think Matheus Cunha looks the part. I just hope this injury he's got isn't a serious one because we need him in that team.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. I absolutely love him. And I'd give it an A as well. It's one of them where sometimes it's like Occam's razor, the most simple explanation is the best. And just signing a player that's scored 20 goals in the Premier League is like the best option, isn't it? Like, you look at, in the past, maybe we tried to be too clever with it and bring people in, and someone like Anthony, where they're going from a league where you don't know if it's going to translate. At the moment, where we still need that open heart surgery Rannick talked about, and signing two Premier League proven players who scored the most goals in the Premier last season is never a bad thing at all. And like you say, Cunha's just slotted right in, like hit the ground running. I love him to bits as well. I'll give that one an A, defo.
And so Brian Mbeumo, does he get the same A-star treatment as well? Because he, for me personally as well, as an Arsenal fan, I thought he looked fantastic in the game against us, but in all the games that he's played as well. He's a fighter, he doesn't give up, and he's so tricky to deal with as well. So Jay, an A?
Yeah, I think so. Again, Sam's mentioned it. Mbeumo got 20 Premier League goals last season. We've not, I'm not saying he's going to do that at United, but we've not had a player do that at United since Robin van Persie. You can't ignore that. 20 Premier League goals is not easy. And he did that. And he's got a bit of everything you'd want from an attacker. He can hold the ball up. He can run in behind. He's skillful. He's strong. He's obviously, got a great left foot as well, but he's not completely uncomfortable on his right. So he's a player that you sort of, as a fan, you can really warm to, because those are the types of players you want to see in United's front line. Direct, knows what he wants to do when he's got the ball and can make it happen as well. I think we've had it in the past where, with the likes of Garnacho, for example, where in that final third, he could carry the ball into the final third, but then his decision-making lets him down. I don't see that with Mbeumo. I think his decision-making is there. And I know he's just started getting off the mark as well. He got a goal against Grimsby, which, okay, who gives a toss? But he also scored at the weekend against Burnley. And it was a good goal from my point of view because it was a tap-in. So he's not just someone who shoots from distance, or he's got that poacher's instinct as well, which you need a bit of that. He's got a sort of the full complement in his arsenal. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Brian Mbeumo. I liked him at Brentford. He was one of those as well. He was a grafter. He runs his heart out for you, and you need a bit of that too at Manchester United, and especially if you're up against it, you need people to drop deep, whatever. He'll do that. He'll lead the line. He'll chase lost causes. You mentioned the Arsenal game. He did not stop running. And I mean, he ran out of steam by the end. He was knackered, but he absolutely kept going, and I was massively impressed. So it's good to see, as Sam's mentioned there, United doing the sort of the obvious thing. We need goals in the Premier League. Let's go out and get someone who scores them. Wow, who'd have thunk it?
Yeah. Yeah, he gets an A+ for me and Mbeumo. I actually love him more than Cunha, and that is because Brentford was like one of the inspirations for building numbers game, because they obviously have a very data-based approach, so all the underlying numbers and data, they were one of the reasons we set up the website. And so I used to watch a lot of them, loved Mbeumo already, would never think United would have gone for a player like that at all. And I was absolutely buzzing when we got him, and he still managed to like exceed my expectations with like his technical ability, like his touch and like the deft little passes and whatnot. I mean, who were we playing? It was against Burnley, wasn't it? The Bruno ball over the top and that cut in. First time touch, he cut in. It was just unbelievable. I just love seeing that. And I think any fan as well loves a player that will try his bollocks off. I don't think there's a player in history that's played for United where if they're trying the bollocks off, the fans will get on the back. Yeah. It's like the anti-Martial, where Martial, very good technically, but didn't work hard, and people start to turn against him. But people like, I love Mason Mount because just players that are willing to work for the badge. And, even if they're not having the best game, I will always appreciate that. And Mbumo's got it all. So I absolutely love that man to pieces. It'd be worth 200 mil if he had a full head of hair, I reckon. Everyone thinks he's about 37, probably.
Let's turn it on to then the last signing of the summer. Obviously, he's not had a lot of opportunities to play for Manchester United, but he comes in with a good history. Benjamin Sesko. Jay, was that a really exciting signing for you? Getting one of Europe's most exciting young strikers, but maybe a bit different from Højlund, where he's had a bit more time at the top and proven himself for a little bit longer. Or do you have little reservations there?
I think it's a fair point about Højlund and the sort of difference there. People tried to say they're the same player. We've just bought another Rasmus Højlund. I don't think that's true. I think Højlund had scored, was it 9 goals in Serie A the season before we bought him, which is nothing wrong with that, but it's not like, wow, look at those numbers. And whilst I don't think Sesko's numbers are ridiculous, it's not like Vitsi Gyökeres numbers. They're a little bit better than that. In terms, I think it's like 13 Bundesliga goals and maybe 14 the season before, plus a similar number of assists. We know that Benjamin Sesko was one of the most sought-after strikers in Europe. At one point, it looked like he's going to go to Arsenal. Then Newcastle wanted him, as they did with all of our signings, and he ends up at Old Trafford. And I'm excited by this one. I like the fact that the business seems to happen quite quickly. We were linked with him, then we had him within like a week, which is quite rare for Manchester United. The only sort of reservation I have with Sesko, and it's not his fault, and we'll have to see, he might end up being an absolute legend at United, there was sort of credible reports that United were in a sort of a discussion as to whether go for a 9 or go for a 6, and we decided to go for a 9 and go for Sesko, which I understand. I just hope that works out, because we know we've got issues in midfield, and it might be a case of, we look back, if Sesko doesn't work out, if he doesn't get the goals we want, or if the midfield becomes such an issue that it's costing us football matches, then people are going to look back and go, actually, we should have got in a number 6. But listen, in answer to your question, I'm buzzing we signed him because he's a good player. It's a bit early to give him a ranking. I just feel like the 90 minutes against Grimsby, it's his first 90 minutes, and there's an argument, a £72 million striker should be scoring against Grimsby, and I get it. But he's not fully fit yet. We've not seen the proper Benjamin Sesko. We've seen glimpses, but I'm looking forward to the next run of games that I mentioned earlier, because then we'll see just how good he is and how ready he is when you've got the likes of City and Chelsea and Brentford and Liverpool. Then you'll know whether you've got a real sort of £72 million striker on your hands who's ready now.
Yeah, I think we all watched quite a few compilations of him a few years ago as well, because we were interested when he was leaving Salzburg. And I remember watching a few YouTube clips of him back then before he went to Leipzig. I'm happy with the signing because I think we need a number 9. I'd rather had a midfielder. Apparently United are saying that we're happy with the midfield. I saw your video talking about Mainu as well, Jay. For me, the Mainu thing devastates me because I just think he's such a player. And the loss in form is not because... It's nothing to do with him. It's because he's not been playing regularly. Like he just got taken out the side. So I hate the fact that if he'd have left, I'd have been literally devastated.
Yeah.
So if it's one or the other, obviously I'd rather have a midfielder. But I'm happy with the signing. Like you say, he's not exactly the most prolific striker in the world, but I think he'll do a lot for the team in just having like a focal point. That was what Højlund was meant to do. I feel like the best thing about Benjamin Sesko is what he'll do for Cunha and Mbeumo and give them more space, because he's quick, he's physical, he's going to occupy defenders. And if he can get a few goals as well, then even better.
Okay, so obviously we focused a lot here on Manchester United, but with these discussions, Manchester United are arguably the biggest team in England, and so they'll be looking over their shoulders as well. Who's going to be the world as well? Who they're going to be competing with for potentially Premier League, maybe not this season, but Champions League spots, European spots. What do you think the rest of the league is going to look like, Jay? Can you put any predictions, maybe who's going to win the league, who's going to make those Champions League spots and European spots, and will Manchester United be one of those teams?
I think in terms of who's going to win the league, you can see Liverpool obviously in the driving seat. They're the reigning champions, and they've started off 3-3, and they don't even think they've played that well, which is usually a good sign if you're going for a title. If you're winning matches without playing that well, because what most teams who are successful tend to do is they get going eventually and they start performing. So you want to, as a rival, hope that when they're not performing, they don't win games, but Liverpool are. And they've obviously spent a lot of money. And I'd be amazed if Isaac doesn't score goals, and Ekitike doesn't score goals, and if Florian Wirtz doesn't turn out to be an effective player for them. So you'd fancy Liverpool for the title. Unfortunately, I think Arsenal historically, last few seasons have been thereabouts. So I'd be surprised if they dropped out of the top 3 or 4. City have struggled, haven't they, this start? I think a Pep Guardiola City team is always going to get Champions League football as a bare minimum. So I expect them to make up the one of the other top 4 spots. And then I think that 4th spot is up for grabs. As it stands, you'd probably fancy Chelsea for it. Well, I would anyway. I think they've got some real quality. I think Moises Caicedo has started to become the midfielder they bought him for, what they wanted from him. And I think obviously Cole Palmer on his day is just unplayable. He's phenomenal. And they've spent, as they always do, they seem to have spent quite well on certain players. Pedro's already started scoring goals for him. Be interesting to see how Garnacho fits into that team. So I think that's going to be top 4. And obviously, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Manchester United gate crash it. But in terms of where Manchester United are going to finish, I think we can get European football, whether that's Conference or Europa. And I know that's 2-bit from a United fan. I've never, ever gone into a season saying that I think 6th or 7th would be a good position for Manchester United. But I think we have to be honest about where we're at and where other teams are at. And I think there's still an outside chance United could finish 5th. And that could be Champions League football. You never know. But I think realistically, probably just going to be a little bit of a step too far from a team that finished 15th to sort of gate crash the Champions League spots. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. It's just so early in it. It's so early. And United haven't been that bad in the Premier League. Other teams, will we get better? City have been woeful. I mean, they beat Wolves, whoop-de-doo, and then got beat was it home to Spurs and then lost to Brighton when they were 1-0 up half an hour to go, which that's not, that's like the City team I grew up watching when the 90s when they were crap. So I don't expect that to continue, unfortunately. I just hope it continues for one more game against us. But they'll be thereabouts, yeah. So it's just too early to tell, really, what's going to happen. I think all we've seen so far tells you that Arsenal looking all right and that Liverpool looking all right, which is what you'd expect.
Yeah. Final question then for you, Jay. Maybe a little bit one outside of the box. So last season we saw the team that overperformed last season was the wonderful Nottingham Forest. So kind of in that vein there, who do you think are a team that will underperform and who will overperform this season?
It's a very good question. In terms of underperforming, it's a tricky one. I'd like to say City. I'd love to say that, but I just don't want to go too early, especially not when we've got them next. And I think the only way City underperform is if Pep is he's having one. He's not the same Pep that we've seen most seasons. If it's just getting to him a little bit with what's going on, I doubt it though. I think one team that might underperform, and this is going to sound insane after the start of it, might actually be Spurs, because we've been here before. Spurs having a good start under a new manager and then unravelling just for no reason almost. Like, everyone's gone early, haven't they, with Thomas Frank at Spurs, and then you saw the Bournemouth game and you go, actually, don't forget this is Tottenham Hotspur. It's kind of what they do. So I think that Spurs might underperform, but it's still be not that bad, if that makes sense. They might underperform and finish like 8th, but people are going, actually, we thought we'd do better than that. But it's still
proper Spurs, yeah.
Yeah, an improvement on last season. And he might get away with it if he does something in the Cups. In terms of overperforming, I like, I don't want to just make this about Bournemouth versus Spurs, but I like the manager at Bournemouth. And I actually think, right, despite the fact they've lost Eze, I think Palace might overperform. I think Palace in Glasgow have got a good manager. Keeping hold of Mark Gay is a good move for them. They've got some real quality there, Palace, and they're a well-run club. And obviously a system that works for the manager there as well. And Mateta's always got a goal in him. And Ismail Sarr is a player I've always rated as well. So I just think that despite
Wharton
losing...
as well, if you can stay fit.
Wharton, great shout. I almost forgot.
Incredible.
He's a really good player. I think if they can get through January and they've still got most of that team together, I think they might end up being one of the teams that you go, actually, they might be moving outside chance of doing something here, because they won the FA Cup last season and people sort of went, "Oh yeah, a good cup team," but you can translate that into being a good league team a lot easier than
100%.
people think.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
they looked so
definitely.
tough for Chelsea in that first game of the season, and I think that was the kind of indicator that they are a great sum of their parts. They're just a really well-oiled, drilled team that can cause problems for anybody and everybody. But I think that was a fantastic discussion with you, Jay. It was a real pleasure to have you on. And just to remind people at the end of the show as well, you talked about your charity work, so we're going to put that in the description below. So all I can do is say subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, get involved as well. Do you agree or disagree with what we've talked about? And we will be back very soon. But also check out all this great stuff that Jay does.
Thanks, Jace. Thanks,
Thanks
Sam. Good
very
chatting
much,
to you
Jay.
guys. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, mate.